what I call digital transformation, the professor in Harvard who wrote the case will always correct me. I tell the students it was a digital transformation, technology transformation. He said, no, it was a culture transformation. Whenever I had great people, I got great results. Whenever I appointed people who were not a good fit, I'm talking about the bank or even in startups, when we chose not the right people, we paid a high price. It's really all about the people.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fintech Leaders, coming to you from New York City. I'm your host, Miguel Armaza. I'm a co-founder of Gilgamesh Ventures, a venture capital firm that backs early-stage fintech entrepreneurs in the U.S. and Latin America. If you enjoyed this conversation, I invite you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so more people can learn about fintech leaders. In this episode, I sit down with Rakefet Russak-Aminoach, managing partner at Team8, a global venture creation and VC fund with over $1 billion in assets under management that creates and invests in companies focusing on fintech, cybersecurity, data and AI, and digital health. Since launching in 2014, Team8 has built 20 companies and achieved an impressive more than $2 billion in exits. Prior to Team8, Rakefet was the CEO of Bank Leumi, which she drove to become the largest company by market cap in all of Israel. In this episode, we discuss Team8's process behind incubating and launching massive companies, transforming and building a company culture, how great talent is the most important ingredient behind achieving great results, why embedded fintech will drive the future of financial services, and a lot more. Rakefet, welcome to Fintech Leaders. Delighted you're joining all the way from Tel Aviv, truly a tech hub and also a fintech hub. And we're going to talk about that, but I'd love to get a bit about your background, because you've gone from accountant to banker to now venture capitalist, and you've held some of the most interesting leadership positions that I could think of. How did it all sort through, right? Did you plan this?
Yes, this is how I describe my career. Usually when people ask me, what did you do? How do you describe your career? I'll say 3 parts: accounting, banking, and high tech. Not venture capitalist, high tech. So we will discuss the difference when we talk about Team8. But I started as an accountant. I was 9 years in accounting, but I never liked accounting. That's the real thing. In accounting, even when you reach the top, even when you have the rewarding part, you are still an advisor, a trusted advisor, but an advisor. And I didn't like this because I wanted to be part of the business. When I switched to banking, I started from credit. I was head of credit. I financed the large transactions. And again, you are a financial advisor to the customer in a way, but you also run your own business. You have to make profit. You have to deal with having a P&L at the end of the day. So it's much, much better, in my opinion, of course. So this was the beginning. I started we were back then Pricewaterhouse. This firm is today KPMG. At the beginning, I was a partner, and then I was the CEO of the firm, and I ran it for a few years. And this was the part that I liked more because it included some leadership roles. Like I had to build, to structure the firm. It was more interesting. And then I switched to banking. As I said, first part credit, and then became CEO of the bank. And when I became CEO, this is where I actually fell in love with technology. Because my background is, I went to university for many, many years. I did accounting, economics, law school, MBA, just name it. Nothing around technology, unfortunately, because today I am so passionate about technology. But I didn't. And when I started my tenure as CEO, I had to find a formula how I'm going to turn around the bank. The Bank Leumi is the oldest bank in Israel. Back then, it was number 2. There are 2 largest banks in Israel, Leumi and Hapoalim, that holds more than 50%. But Leumi was second. But it was a very old incumbent in many, many ways. And I was looking for a way how to disrupt it, how to turn it around, to make it number 1, to make it innovative. And it took me a while to understand that digital can change the whole thing. And then I started digital transformation. While changing the bank, I understood the digital transformation is actually taking the old bank and facelift and have a facelift. It's not changing the whole thing from the infrastructure. And then I decided to build also a neobank. All of this to tell you, in a nutshell, that technology became more than a profession. It was like a hobby. And I decided that I want to go to technology. And when I decided to step down, when the bank became number 1 company in Israel, market cap wise, and I said, well, this is the time, I said, I'll go to high tech. And you have to remember, and actually you said this, that Israel is very, very prominent country in technology. We have 1 startup to every 1,400 people, something like that. I think that per capita, we are number 1 in the world in unicorns. And I can say some more. But the idea is that in a very concentrated high-tech sector, very strong, very dominant. And I think it relates to the Israeli characteristics, to the army. We can discuss it later. So this is the 3 components of my career in a nutshell.
I'm very curious to talk about your experience at Bank Leumi, because I mean, most of the interviewing that I do is with people leading institutions that are 5, 10 years old and have gotten big very quickly. Whereas here you were leading an institution that was over 100 years old. Today's, I believe, 120 years. And you think about that, you're like, wow, but what does that mean? I don't think it means anything if the company doesn't do a good job at maintaining some sort of institutional memory, right? Because the people are different. Obviously, there's been many generations of professionals, and your experience, and maybe you experienced this at me, maybe you didn't, but great organizations that do maintain institutional memory and learnings, how do they do it? What do they have in common?
Interesting the way you describe it, because I usually refer to the culture of the organization. I think that what you call memory, I call culture. And Leumi was 110 years old when I started my tenure. Yeah, today it's 120 some. And culture-wise, it had many parts that were great and to keep. Very professional bank, very dedicated people, lots of great parts that you say, well, you just have to keep them. Amazing. But on the other side, partially because it's an old organization, but not only because, also because it's a huge incumbent, very conservative, very old school. People don't ask themselves, why do I do it that way? Maybe I can do it in a better way. They don't do that. So on the one hand, I had to keep and to keep the culture, to make sure that the good things are with us for long. But on the other hand, what I call digital transformation, the professor in Harvard who wrote the case will always correct me. I tell the students it was a digital transformation, technology transformation. He said, no, it was a culture transformation. So your question about the memory, I would say it's the culture. And culture it's the ingredients that are there. Not easy to keep the good ones, but I think even harder to change the ones you want to change.
What was important for you as you were embarking in that cultural transformation? Because it's definitely one of the hardest things to do for a company. I mean, an extreme example we've seen in public view is Elon Musk acquiring Twitter, now X, and like taking many steps to change the culture. What was your experience like?
I think that at the end of the day, when I look at it from like now, when I analyze it, I understand that the most difficult thing was to change the culture. Sometimes you don't understand it when you are within the journey. But I always say I was in a constant roadshow. I was pitching my vision, my way, what I believe, I think 24/7. It was within the board and with the shareholders meeting and with unions and employees and managers just all over. And I was so passionate. And I really believed that if we go this journey to what I like to execute my vision, we will be an unbelievable bank. And I think that your success in transforming culture is part of it, at least, is authenticity. Because changing culture is the hardest thing for your people. That's natural. People don't like it. They want to do tomorrow what they did yesterday. Just leave us alone. And then in order to follow the leader, they have to trust him. They need to see that he is walking the talk, that it's not what he says, it's what he does. So you have to gain this trust. And it's very difficult. And you have to convince that you believe in what you're doing and you mean business. It's not just what you're saying on stages. So this was a very significant component of the whole thing, to change the culture via gaining trust, that people will follow you because they trust you.
Can I ask you something? You mentioned that by the time you left, Leumi had become the biggest company in Israel, not just the biggest bank, but the biggest company, which is impressive by market cap, right?
Market cap wise, because otherwise it's very difficult to compare.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I'm wondering, why isn't the top 10 of the largest companies in Israel filled with tech companies? You've mentioned it, highest number of unicorns per capita, or one of the highest. I've talked to so many impressive entrepreneurs coming out of Israel. If you look at the US, 15 years ago, it was just Microsoft in the top 10. 5 years ago, it was 5 out of 10. Today, I believe it's like 9 out of 10. So what's going on?
Okay, I think it's very easy to explain, in my opinion, because Israel is a very tiny country, around 10 million people all together. So when you look at the high-tech sector and the way we are built, and I can mention Team8 here, just as an example. Team8 is a very unique venture group because what we do is mainly building companies. We invest as well, but our platform, the basis of the infrastructure for everything is company building. And when we build companies, we will do the technology. We will build all the technology and all the tech talent we will have here in Israel. But the go-to-market, the biz dev, the marketing, all this part will be in the US. And this is what happens to tech companies. If they're good, they will go, not always to the US. We work mainly with US, but it could be Europe or Far East or whatever. But at the end of the day, the Israeli market is not relevant because it's small. And then if you build a great tech company, it will either be acquired by a large corporation or incumbent in the world or someone or whatever, go for an IPO in the US, or just move to the US and will not stay an Israeli company. So naturally, the largest companies in Israel are the domestic ones. Leumi is domestic company. So you can see there the banks, the insurance companies, the food companies, the ones who serve the Israeli market. It's because we are very, very far and we are not in the great neighborhood that we can sell to. So we sell to the US.
That makes a lot of sense. And related to Team8, I mean, you are building and launching companies essentially to build in the US, right? Or mostly in the US. But if most of the team is in Israel, how do you actually crack entering a quote unquote foreign market?
Okay. So we don't build them as in Israeli companies and then go to foreign markets. We build them from scratch as US companies, for example, that have their tech here in Israel. Because what's the thing about Team8? What is our unfair advantage? We have the great access we have to the best tech talent of Israel is unparalleled. So we get the best tech people and we build a tech group for each company. The CTO will be here in Israel and the CEO will usually be in the US, or in some cases he starts here and then he moves to the US because he's supposed to be a US company. So there is no really a question of we are an Israeli company now trying to be in the US. No, we are from the beginning building a company that is aimed to serve the US market.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so I guess your experience with specifically Pepper at Leumi is really what opened your eyes to this whole world. Maybe share a bit about that and how that informed your transition into Team8.
Okay. So Pepper actually is a startup. I can say that this was the first startup that I built. Although it has one different characteristic, that it's a startup within an incumbent, which is very different than a regular startup that is on its own. But Pepper just showed me how you can take technology and harness it to build great things, which I was not very exposed to. As I told you, I didn't come from technology background. So I was not exposed to the magic of technology.
And that transition, going from a company of thousands of employees into a very lean structure and building from scratch, like what guided you as you were going through that transition, which is, it's already been a while. It's been over 5 years. But what were the biggest shocks?
I don't know. It's not even 5 years. It's more than a bit more than 4. But I don't think there was a shock. Maybe I should mention here that I stepped down from Leumi at the end of 2019 and COVID started at the beginning of 2020. So I think that my life changed upside down with both. And it was very difficult to distinguish what came from what, because very soon after I stepped down from my role at Leumi, we were all at home, 2.5 years without traveling, without parties, without anything. And for example, we raised money all over Zoom. I mean, we built the whole thing over Zoom and we did it at home. So maybe it mixed up the change, because I was used to go to work every day, dress up like a CEO with heels and suit and be a CEO. And suddenly I am with the shirt and jeans at home, working most of the day over Zoom. Very, very different life. But even if I try to put this aside, the thing about me is that I need a change once in a few years. Otherwise, I'm not happy. And the reason I decided to step down from the bank is that I wanted a new environment, a new ecosystem that I will be able to learn a lot more on a daily basis, which I didn't have that much within the bank after 7.5 years as CEO. It became I don't want how to define it to say it became easy, because it never easy. But all the large challenges, all the big issues that I confronted at the beginning were not there anymore. So I said, well, I'm 52, 53, I don't remember. And I said, well, this is my last chance to build to myself a third career in high tech. And I'm saying high tech and not VC, because on my day to day is not deciding to invest in this or this, because what we do is not unlike a regular VC. We don't take LP's money to invest in different companies, like we meet all of them and then we choose this one yes, this one no. But what we do is we co-found the companies with the entrepreneurs. Yes, we raise money. Yes, we invest the money with our founders, but we also build the companies with them. So it's much more active than a regular VC. And even headcount wise, we're not that small. Our platform is close to 100 people, which is a very large platform for a venture group. And they are all what we call company builders. What they do, we have the technical stuff that companies need, like finance and IT and real estate, etc. And we also bring them what I called our unfair advantage, which is our access to talent, our very, very large network, what we call village, that we work with all the S&P 500 and others, so we can help a lot with go-to-market.
Rakefet, help us understand your process on how you take an idea, or actually how do you find the idea first and then build a team and then eventually launch the company? Because obviously this is a very tough process. Most firms do not want to do it, but those that find a formula that works, they can build something special.
Okay. So here is the way we work. First of all, we explore a domain. I can tell you what we are exploring these days, just as an example. We decided that fraud is going to be more popular, if I can say, ubiquitous everywhere. And LLM will make it much, much easier for fraudsters. So we decided that we want to build companies in fraud. So what is the process from now on? First of all, we will research the domain upside down. We will get to a point where we will feel that we own the domain, that we understand it from all angles. Now we will start thinking about the main challenges that are not being solved by the existing companies. And we will validate the challenges with what we call the community, with companies and people that are relevant. And then we will start looking for a solution, for a tech solution to solve a specific problem, and then we will validate it. Usually, parallel to building the company or parallel for the ideation, we will look for the founders. So we work on two tracks. It's a twofold process. One, looking for ideas, and the other one, looking for the right founders. Sometimes, but it's not a formula. Sometimes people come and they say, well, we have an idea. So we'll not tell them, we don't take ideas from others. Oh, yes, we do. So if you have a great idea and you want to build it with us, be our guest, come. So it works. So it's not always the way I describe it, because life is different than that. But our process is, let's ideate, let's find founders, and let's match this together. And in life, sometimes it's exactly like that, and sometimes it's not.
And is your goal within fintech, because I know you do more than fintech, but within fintech, is your goal to launch about one company a year? Is it more than that? Is it less than that?
1 to 2 companies a year. Actually, we will usually build like 6 companies in 5 years. Yeah, it's not a lot more than one, because it takes a lot of effort to build a company, to start, to find the idea, to validate it, to find the great people, and then the team. Yeah.
And tell us more about the team. You mentioned 100 people, what are the core functions that you're providing to companies that you launch?
We provide them just everything. They come here, they have a finance team, they will help them to start a company, to open a bank account, just everything. They have the real estate. We have almost the whole building that we are sitting in, except for one floor. So we have real estate to give them. We have the IT, operations, just everything. And then we have our HR team, which is an unbelievable recruiting team, and they will help them find all of the talent they need. And then we have the marketing team to build their website and the biz dev, whatever they can think of. And they have us, and we are a group of 12 partners around, and they can approach us, consult with us, ask us to reach our network, everything. And think about it, that we discuss fintech now, but Team8 started 10 years ago with cyber. And then we added fintech. And then we added data. And now we added, not now, but 3 years ago or whatever, we added digital health. So we have lots of expertise. And one of the ideas that we are now exploring is to find the right intersections to work in. Meaning, what is fraud? For us, it's an intersection of fintech and cyber. Because attackers, fraudsters, pretty much the same. Or not the same, but you can take a lot of takeaways. And the same in digital health and fintech. One of the areas where I find a lot of interest, personally, is the health system in the US, which is in many, many terms a broken system. How do you fix it with building fintech companies in the digital health space? So we have a company that we started almost a year ago called Blue Spine, just as an example, that is helping self-insured employers to reduce health expenses. Or if I want to explain it a bit more with the technology, so using LLM, Gen AI, in order to build an engine that will be able to check 100% of your health expenses and to find fraud, waste, and abuse. Reduction of probably 10%, which is very, very meaningful. And this is fintech plus health. So we can bring our expertise from different domains.
At what point do you start seeing companies kind of cut the umbilical cord, right? Become fully independent? Or are they always being supported by the Team8 shared services?
Amazing question, because it's always a thing. When do we say bye? So first of all, we never say bye, but we are the seed investors. Usually we start around 40%. And then when they raise A and then B, C, we become smaller and smaller. And at a certain point, we are not the largest investor, first of all. But for us, when they go to raise A, we see them as an independent company. And there usually they get from us like they get from other investors. But the truth is, but this is the theory. In life, what you see is when they have a big problem, they come back home. And home is Team8. So like CEO, something happened to the CEO and they need a new CEO. They will come to Team8, even in those companies that we have less than other investors, because they feel they have a real challenge. It's just like kids that come back home, even when they are older, when they have a big issue. I don't know, you are young, but I can say that my daughters, when they call you, they need you. So we are there for them, but they're totally independent after they raise their A round.
And can I ask you something, going back to our discussion about culture? When you look at the portfolio of Team8, do you think all companies have the same culture or a similar culture, or not at all?
Not at all. And the reason is that the truth is that this is not Team8 companies. These companies belong to the founders. And the culture is built by the founders. This is their company. And it's always true. And you can see different companies with totally different culture because you have a CEO, a CTO, 2 founders, 3 founders, and they're there 24/7. We are in the back seat. We are assisting. Remember I told you I moved from accounting to banking because I wanted to be in the front seat. But after 16 years in the front seat, I'm back to because being a venture group, venture capitalist, venture foundry like whatever, you are the back seat. This is their company. And this is why I will always say that the most important thing, more than the idea, more than the platform who helps them, more than anything, the quality of the people. And it's not a cliche. It's a real thing. And I can tell you from my experience, and I already have dozens of years of experience. Whenever I had great people, I got great results. Whenever I appointed people who were not a good fit, I'm talking about the bank or even in startups, when we chose not the right people, we paid a high price. It's really all about the people. All the rest, you can fix, you can change.
Surround yourself with great people and magic happens.
Exactly. Wow. Great sentence. Magic happens.
Rakefet, before I let you go, I want to talk about your view on the future of banking and financial services. You've seen it all at this point. You led an incumbent. You launched their digital arm successfully. Now you're helping build fintechs. Where do you see the industry moving?
First of all, I want to admit that all the things that I saw so early, I was very early with my predictions of fintech. I thought it will happen much, much quicker. So we can take our time. Banks are here to stay. Very difficult to disrupt them. It's happening, but it's much slower than what I thought. Now, having said that, if you look at the last decade, there are so many new fintech companies. There are so many new successful fintech companies that you say, well, if I'm a banker, if I go back to my previous seat, you'd say, well, we should start worrying. So yes and no. Yes and no. Because one of the things we all learned in the last decade is that customer acquisition cost in financial services is very high. And because it's very high, it's very difficult to reach profitability if you try to acquire customers. And this brings me to my belief that the main trend we will see, which is relevant to banks and to fintechs, is embedded fintech. Because it's much easier to bring the fintech to the customer wherever he is than to try to migrate customer. I'll just give you an example with something that we do. Take neobanks, for example, which I know very well. We all know that it takes years to start making money in neobanks because the customer acquisition cost is so high. So now look at those the successful neobanks around the world. They have millions of customers, but now they have to serve them with much more services in order to make money. It's not enough basic banking. So we built a company, which is a US company only, called April. April, what it builds is what we have is an engine that is based on LLM that will file your Miguel tax return in half an hour, free, via your bank. You say, wow, Rakefet, you're kidding. No, I'm not kidding. So this is embedded fintech because it's embedding tax within financial services. Now you can embed tax within fintechs, like we did up till now with Chime and others in the US, but you can also embed tax with banks. Because now the second thing will be after the fintechs and the payroll companies, we are coming to the incumbents and we say to them, well, you are not going to stay behind. And they say, yes, you're right. We will. So tomorrow you are a Chase customer and you will go in online and you will do your taxes as well. So, wow, what is the difference between just having a fintech service than embedded fintech? Fintech service, you have to go to April website and look there. No, you are working. Where are you on a daily basis, on a weekly basis? You are on your Chase account or Chime account or whatever. And I am providing you the tech service there, which is a win-win to everyone. Because as a startup, I don't have to pay hundreds of dollars to obtain a customer. You don't have to search or move or from one website to another, from the bank to the tax company to all. You have everything together. And the banks or the fintechs, they make more money because they already have the customer. And now I let them give the customer more services, which increases stickiness, increases revenues. Everyone is happy. So this is the future, in my opinion. And important to say, not just in financial services and fintechs. I think that embedded fintech can be embedded within other hubs of customers. I don't see a reason why Amazon or Walmart will not do the same. They have millions of customers. Why don't you give them services? Not the ones that you need regulation for, but the ones you can do without regulation or that you depend on the regulation of the fintech company. So this is the future, in my opinion.
Meeting customers where they already are.
Exactly.
Exciting stuff, Rakefet. I know you're a avid podcast listener. Any favorite podcast that you would recommend?
I really love the podcasts of Guy Raz. He has two that I know is a Voice from the Top and How I Build This.
I love that one. Yeah.
Both of them are, Guy Raz is amazing and his podcasts are amazing. And I usually try to find podcasts of people that I met during my career. The one I heard a few weeks ago that I really liked was about the founder of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, that I met in Seattle when I went to Satya Nadella. But even when you don't know the people, just amazing. Very recommended, in my opinion.
Yeah, actually, How I Built This was one of the podcasts that inspired me to start interviewing people.
Amazing. And Guy Raz just knows his work. Unbelievable.
Well, Rakefet, someone who also knows their work is you. So thanks for educating all of us. And I'm excited to see all the companies that will continue to come out of Team8. And I'm sure I would love for some of them in the future to stop by the podcast as well. We would love to tell their story.
Sure. Will do. Thank you, Miguel, for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this great episode with Rakefet from Team8. If you want more interviews, make sure to subscribe, follow, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever you get your shows. It helps and means a lot. And if you have any suggestions or thoughts about the show, just drop me a line on Twitter or LinkedIn. Signing off till next week, I'm your host, Miguel Armaza. The Fintech Leaders Podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or investment advice. How do I pronounce your last name?
Okay, first let's discuss this last name because I have two that I use, but Aminoach.
Aminoach. Okay, amazing. Yeah.
Actually, you said my first name correctly, which is very rare with Americans. This because you are not American.
Yes, that's why.
Yeah, absolutely. They never make it.